He's more than an athlete. He's an artist.
I think you're in love, Ron.
Shut up.
Victor, I love you. Victor, I do.
When we're apart, my heart beats only.
Hey, my eyes aren't glistening with the ghost of my past.
I'm not an owl.
Technically, it's a ferret.
Ah, c'est magnifique.
Kill the stag.
I'm on a Barty Crouch.
Behaving like a babbling, bumbling band of baboons.
Junior.
Hey everybody, just wanted to hop in here real quick before the episode begins to let you know something really cool happened this past week. Rachel from The Manuscript asked me to come onto her podcast and talk about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So we had a wonderful time talking about the whole book, some of our favorite lines, connections to other literature, food, and a bunch of dance stories that I probably shouldn't have shared, but I hope you guys enjoy that. That episode comes out this Tuesday, so the day after this episode comes out. But go check out her podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a bunch of other platforms too. So enjoy that, and yeah, enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to Retold, podcast where I retell you my favorite story of all time, Harry Potter. Today, we will be covering chapters 13 and 14 of the Goblet of Fire. But I never do this journey alone. I always have with me some very special guests. And this week, coming back for his second appearance on the podcast, it's Dan from Hogwarts, a podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on again.
Absolutely.
I know you just had me on because we do talk about Trelawney a little bit. I know that's why. But
Did you see that in the Instagram shout out? That was your little superlative. Was like
Yes.
a great Trelawney defender or apologist, something like that.
this time I have a lot to say about a different teacher, so we'll see.
Very good. Yeah, we were just discussing before the podcast that these are very similar chat. It's like the same, literally it's the same part of the school year as the episodes you did last time. So that's kind of providential, one might say. And so normally, listeners, I ask my guests their fandom ID, and that is their Hogwarts house, their favorite book, favorite movie, and how they got into Harry Potter. However, I know you guys, as soon as you find this podcast, you just binge every single episode, and you already know all those aspects about Dan. Although I can't remember, what was your house again?
Ravenclaw.
Ravenclaw. Very good. Now, for the second time on, I asked my guests if they were to teach at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, what subject would they most want to teach?
Yeah, so when you asked me this question, I had to break it down into two different ways. What I probably most realistically would teach, and then what I would actually want to or wish to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wish to teach would be a very common one that you'll probably get a lot of answers on is Defense Against the Dark Arts. I would love to be representing that dueling club at Hogwarts kind of thing. Realistically, though, I think Care of Magical Creatures would be
Okay. I thought you were about to say Muggle Studies, because that's just what I know the
Wouldn't
most.
that be easy? Yeah.
But Care of Magical Creatures,
I
just
think it would be Care of Magical Creatures, yeah.
you a big animal guy?
I am. I'm in healthcare as my actual day job.
Oh, cool.
But if I was going to go to something else as a career, it would be in photography and zoology. So I
Very
think that
cool.
would be my natural pivot.
Well, very good. Thank you for sharing that. And so now, listeners, without further ado, we're going to get to the Quizzitch portion of the episode. And
It's
so
the most nerve-wracking part of the episode.
the most nerve-wracking part of the episode. And I'm really excited for this. This is going to be a lot of fun. If this is your first time listening, listeners, what I typically do every single episode is I ask my guests 2 questions about the chapters that we cover, and they ask me 2 questions about the chapters, and I keep track of the score. And by the end of a season, at the end of a book, we see who won. And so, Dan, I don't know if you knew, but last book, the world won. The guests representing the world, they won the championship. And so I am now down 2-1. I only won book 1, lost book 2, lost book 3, but I'm on the comeback trail. And I'm currently it's weird. I'm kind of winning at the moment. So this is the first episode of this season that I'm recording out of order. I was supposed to record the previous chapters on Tuesday. However, my wife gave birth that day. And I texted my guest, who's Emily, a good friend of mine, and she's been on several episodes. But I said, hey, I know we scheduled for today, but my wife has gone into labor, so I will unfortunately have to meet up with you another time. But I was winning then. I don't know what's going to happen when we redo it. I was winning by 1 point total, but don't know what the score is now. Future Barry will hop in and tell everybody what the score is. Currently, dear listeners, I am leading by a score of, well, I don't know the overall score, but I'm ahead by 1.5 points. Back to the podcast. Thank you, Future Barry. And so now, Dan, let's get into it. You ask me a question, I'll ask you, and we'll go back and forth.
Oh, man. Okay. So this is always the difficult thing is, do I go easy or hard? And what do I think is easy and what do I think is hard is always a good question.
Yeah, you are a different breed of guest host.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start out with, since I said Care of Magical Creatures, we'll stick with that theme. So in our first chapter here, chapter 13, the owls come in for their daily post.
They do.
What type of eagle does Draco Malfoy own?
Oh, what type of... Is it... I'm assuming eagle owl isn't the whole answer.
No, eagle owl is correct.
Okay, very good.
Eagle owl. Large owl. Big owl.
Yes, fantastic. Is that technically an eagle or an owl?
I think it's just a really large owl.
That's what I thought too. So I was a little thrown off when you said what type of eagle, and I was like, oh, interesting. But all right, your question.
Did I actually say that? Did I give away my own question?
I think you. So that's what made it a little more easy. I was like, I mean, I knew the answer anyway. If you want to ask a different one, you can ask a second or a different.
I do have
one.
a second one for chapter 13. If you want to use it or you want to have it on the side.
Let's do it. Let's go ahead. We'll throw away that one and we'll do a different one.
Which class do the Hufflepuffs have following herbology?
Following herbology. Oh, that's a good question. And you don't want to rephrase the question to put the answer in it this time.
I almost did again. I'm not going to
Did you really? Oh, I'll say they're going to Defense Against the Dark Arts.
No.
What class are they going to?
They're going back up to the castle for Transfiguration.
I wouldn't have got that anyway because my second guess was potions. So that's how I know that I'm super wrong when my second guess wouldn't have even been the right one. All right, fair enough. Your question. Let's see. What types of... So this one, for your second question, I know it's going to be easier. This one's going to be harder, but I believe in you. What types of food does Hagrid have prepared for the Scroots?
Oh, this is a good question. Frog livers was one. Ant eggs were another. And then there was a third one. Oh, man, what was the third one?
If you don't get it, I'll give you a half point because those are both right so far.
Frog livers. And, oh, man, what was the third one?
Mr. Care of Magical Creatures.
I know. Shoot. I think I'm blanking on the third one.
Do you want to just throw a random thing out there? Just for funsies?
Isn't it like an actual animal? Isn't it like oh, man. Isn't it like bits of snake or something like that?
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
It was very close. Grass snake, but it's bits of grass snake, and I think that deserves a full answer, a full point. So congratulations, full point goes to you.
That was a good one.
Right? And so I was inspired because when you were on last time, you said the Care of Magical Creatures, name all of the hippogriffs and what color they were. And I was like, that was
a hard one. That was a hard one.
So I thought I'd get you back, but
no, I like
you
that
rose
question.
to meet the challenge. All right, what's your second question?
Okay. This one might be a little harder.
Fantastic.
What is the name of their textbook for Defense Against the Dark Arts?
Oh, The name of their textbook. See, listeners, this is why I have Potter podcasters on sometimes to humble me. And the name of their textbook. All I can think of is like all the divination book names, you know, because even one of them is Holding Unfogging the Future at one point in these chapters. The name of their book is, I don't know. What? It's a second I don't know.
The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection.
Oh,
that was a hard one.
Constant Vigilance.
That one is a very hard one. Constant Vigilance. We must always utilize Constant Vigilance.
Always. All right, so I'm definitely not going to. I had a super easy one on your next one, so I'm not going to do that one. The super easy one was, what is the Gryffindor common room password? And
I also had that one. That was also my easy one for you.
I figured you've got that. So you're a more difficult one, although I still think you'll probably get it. Ron and Harry make several unfortunate predictions for themselves. Which of these is not one of them? So I'm going to give you 4, A, B, C, and D, and you tell me which one is not one of them. A, getting burned. B, being drowned. C, getting trampled. Or D, being decapitated.
Okay. I think Harry's last one that he ends on is that he was decapitated. I think Hermione says that Ron said he would drown twice. So it's not those two.
And I can repeat them. They are A, getting burned, B, being drowned, C, getting trampled, or D, being decapitated.
I think Ron says at some point getting trampled by hippogriffs, if I'm not mistaken. I think I'm going to go 1, burned.
The answer, burned. That is incorrect. The correct answer is being drowned. Hermione says you put being trampled twice by hippogriffs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You know what's funny, though? Before I wrote down the answer, I wanted to use this question, and I Googled it because I had already been through the chapter. And Google, like the Google AI thing, listed being drowned. But the reason it's wrong is because that was from book 3. Ron had mentioned that in book 3 already. But close. But either way, you still come out on top today, 1-0. Good job, Dan. You have represented the world well, and you guys are crawling back. I'm really hoping that at this point I won last episode 2-0 to keep somewhat of a lead. But Future Barry will come back in with the current score and the answer to last week's Quizzitch question right here. Hello. So this is a little embarrassing. Before I get to the answer to last week's Quizzitch question, I do have to make a correction. The answer that Dan gave to that second question was correct. I actually asked somewhat of a bogus question because A, B, C, and D were all correct options, and I just did not see that in the text. So my whole little explanation of, it was really crazy because the internet told me that one was actually right, but I knew it was wrong. No, I was wrong. So congratulations, Dan. You got both of your questions correct. And so the guests are now leading by half a point. And that's where we currently stand in the Quizzitch competition. But your question for last week was, could you name any of the Hufflepuff students, any students who were sorted into Hufflepuff in that sorting ceremony? And the correct answer to that question was, you could have either said Eleanor Branston, Owen Caldwell, or Laura Madley. That was your question for last week. If you got it right, congratulations. If you got it wrong, better luck next time. Next time being right now. This week, your question was, how many cauldrons has Neville melted, and what is his detention for that? How many cauldrons has Neville melted, and what was his detention? If you want to answer that, you can write into theretoldpodcast@gmail.com or send me a message on Instagram at theretoldpodcast. And that's our Quizzitch section. Dan, are you ready for our chapter coverage?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. And listeners, if you're new here, the way it works is I will retell what happens in each chapter, hopefully in a fun and entertaining way. And Dan is free to interrupt me as he sees fit, or he's free to not talk at all. But if you hear him interrupting, he's not being rude. He's doing what I asked him to do. And then at the end of that, we will have a few bonus sections for each chapter where we will both highlight our favorite lines of the chapter, and then I'll highlight transfigurations, differences that the movies made from the books, and our golden snitches, which are little lore behind the scenes things. And then we'll do that all again for the next chapter. And at the very end of the episode, we will have our restricted section, which is full of all the spoilers, because it's a fun little bit here that we try to avoid saying spoilers during the chapter coverage, but at the end, it's no holds bars. Everything's on limits, off limits. I don't know the expression. Anyway, nothing's off limits. That's what the phrase is. All right, so let's do it. Chapter 13, Mad Eye Moody. So I wrote the weather is vibes. I forget why I wrote that. I think it's like it's all cloudy out there. It's a typical like rainy Scotland day. I loved it. But the kids are at breakfast looking at their schedules. They have herbology with the Huffs, care of magical creatures with the Slytherins, and double divvy at the end of the day. So Hermione makes fun of divination. I'm sure you liked that, Dan. The mail comes in. There's no Hedwig. Sorry, Harry. We're still waiting to hear from Sirius. But to take his mind off of things, he gets to play with some boobatubers. Yay! So he's going to herbology. These things are disgusting. I wrote down as a note, like the audience being, what's that, Barry? Well, listeners, I already told you in a previous Golden Snitch section, so shame on you for not listening. But they're like, these big old worm-like creatures with a bunch of pustules on them. Dan, a potential Quizzitch question for you, but I threw it out because I was like, he's a genius. He'll know it. What the pustules smell like when they get popped. And it said petrol.
Yeah, it's a weird smell.
Yeah. So
valuable, though.
Incredibly so. So, and although poor Eloise Midgen section.
Yeah, she catches a stray here, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
I saw that there's this guy on Instagram that I recently followed. I think it's called Garrick's Apprentice. Like Garrick Ollivander's apprentice, but he makes wands, like actual wooden wands. And his like whole bit for his page is that he's on a mission to recreate every single wand, in Harry Potter. And he had a cool video. He makes really cool edits, but he had a cool video where he was talking about Eloise Midgen in the movie The Goblet of Fire. Apparently that actress, she never got a wand. And so his whole bit is, I'm going to make her wand. And also, she never got credited in the movie. Like, she's an extra, even though she's a named character. So if you see the credits, she's not even listed, and she has no wand. So I thought that was kind of sad. But
that character gets no love. None.
Not a single bit. She's up there with, Cho's friend in the next book that everybody hates. Marietta Edgecombe, yeah. People don't like her either. But
warranted.
Sneak. So they're little thick black worms that got pimples on them that you get pus from, and that pimple pus fights off other pimples. Anyway, off to care of magical creatures. And what are they doing today? Taking care of blast-ended scroots. Also, yay.
Not
Dan,
a lesson I would have taught if I were a teacher.
I was about to say, nope. Dan, how would you describe these beasts?
You know what? I don't even know. These things are like, they describe them as shellless lobsters with like legs in weird positions. Some have stingers. Some have like this little sucker protuberance. Just a weird creature. They don't seem to have a discernible like head or mouth. I don't know where he got the idea for this or where he got them. I know they just hatched. So they're like 6-inch long things. And he says there's about 100 of them, which is insane.
Yeah, it's listeners, it's going to be, if you've never read this book, it's a fun little plot line. If you have read this book, you already know. The Scroots are very funny to me. I love where they end up near the end of the book. But I know you can also, if you've read the Newt Scamander's Care of Magical Creatures book that has the pictures for all of them, the pictures in that book, they look like nightmare fuel. They are terrifying. They're horrifying.
Which, like you said, is great for the end of the book.
Great for the end of the book. That's right. It
works, but yeah.
So Malfoy stumps Hagrid. I love that, actually. So normally I don't, but I did like when he goes, and what exactly do they do? Like, what's their purpose? And Hagrid just goes, that's for next lesson.
But the problem with that is it's such a simple question. He's not even trying to like make a scene. It's a simple question.
Yeah, it's a pity. Like even Hermione later, she goes, actually, I think Malfoy was right. I just didn't want to say that in front of him. We do get a little Norbert shout out, and that's kind of interesting. I wonder why. Anyway, I love that Hagrid doesn't know what they eat, because he basically, like you said, the three different things, Dan got them all correct now I'm trying to remember. It was the grass snake, bits of grass snake. Oh man, I wouldn't even have got my own question right. Bits of grass snake, ants, frog livers,
ant eggs, which
ant
I think
eggs.
is the weirdest maybe of the three.
Mm-hmm.
He's out there collecting eggs from ants.
Just find an anthill and scoop. The parents would run away. The eggs are their home.
Yes, I don't know. It's just a weird ingredient, I guess, or thing.
Yeah, but I just love that he's like, yeah, I don't know what they eat. Let's find out. Here we go. Give it a shot. And it is interesting that if you're going to teach on something, not knowing what it eats, that does seem important. It does seem
Another
important.
simple question. Yeah.
I love you, Hagrid, but it does seem important.
It's a rough first lesson.
Moving on. They make a quick little pit stop, fuel up at lunch on lamb chops and potatoes. That was almost a potential Quizzitch question.
I would eat so much if I went to this school. Oh my goodness.
Have you been to Universal?
I have, yeah.
I bet. So like, I am not a fan of most of the food at the Wizarding World, like in
it's pretty,
the
generic.
British food, that they serve. Do you like it much?
It's okay. I don't get anything crazy. I get like fish and chips, which is
I
like
get the fish and chips.
Yeah.
Every single time.
I don't know if Epic has anything different. I haven't been to Epic yet.
It was wonderful, except for the fact that I didn't get to get on the Harry Potter ride for the whole day because it was shut down. And then when I was finally given a chance, it was a 3-hour wait because, it had been closed the whole day. Wow. And no ride is worth a 3-hour wait. But anyway, Dan, do you know what time it is?
What? Oh, it's time for my favorite.
It's time for divination.
Yeah. It's time for divination.
So they go to the North Tower, up that old trusty step ladder, and check in for a spell on old Trelawney. And she's back on her business, wearing her shawls, telling Harry he has to, die, as you do. I love that Harry, like, whenever she predicts bad stuff about him, he actually, like, thinks about it, because she goes, that thing that you're dreading is going to happen. And he's like, no, what is she talking about? And then later he goes, what am I dreading? And I thought,
like how he goes, what does she know anyway? She's a fraud. Hermione's right. She was right about last year, though. And
yeah.
And Dumbledore did really think it was genuine. So, yeah, no, she doesn't know what she's doing. No, that's fine.
And he even says, like, he found her predictions as really good guesswork. But that's still, like, correct. Like even if it is guesswork, she was still right in her predictions. And so my note that I had similar to yours was, she's usually not right, except for when she is.
Yep. Which is more often than people think, which is the scary bit.
Now, she does seemingly fumble the bag whenever she and she makes a somewhat of a fool of herself in front of the class whenever she says, now, Harry, I know that you were born under, or I'm guessing you were born under Saturn, which means you were born in midwinter. And he goes, no, July, actually. Thank you. Try again. So anyway, Ron, he makes a Uranus joke, as a 14-year-old boy is wont to do.
Did you find that odd that that she slid this in there in a 4th-year book like Goblet of Fire? Like, wow, you're okay. All right.
Pretty bold. What's funny about it is, the first time I read it, I didn't catch it. I think I was in elementary school I think it was elementary school. And I was just reading. And I think I was so caught up in everything else going on, I didn't even think, Uranus. But it is.
There's even a spoilery part to this joke, which is like, there's a level to this joke too, which is crazy.
Yeah. And it's also interesting in that, like, it feels like a muggle joke. It doesn't feel like a thing that a wizard would say. So it seemed out of place, but hey, it made me laugh a little bit. So they leave class. Just before dinner, though, Malfoy has something to share with everybody. And what is it? Nothing good. It's a pretty naughty hit piece on Arthur, or should we say Arnold Weasley, found in the Daily Prophet, written by Rita Skeeter. So Rita, author of said article, trashes Arnold for helping that crazy old Mad-Eye Moody out of a tough spot with some muggle police.
Doing his job.
He's doing his job. And if that was not enough, Malfoy starts to bring out the your mama jokes on Ron. Harry and Hermione have to hold him back, but after one more your mama joke, because, he basically just keeps calling her fat is all he does. Poor and then fat. And after one final one, I love that Harry he's just, you know what, Malfoy? Let's talk about yo mama. And he actually has a really good burn because, it's even written in that chapter that she looked like she smelled something weird or had something weird under her nose. And then Harry makes that same thing. And it's always bothered me that when Harry makes this joke, Malfoy has the nerve to be offended, because he says, how dare you talk about my mother? And I just thought, what did you just did that?
You
what
can't
are you
take
doing?
it, and you really can't just deal it out. So
yeah, I wrote down, oh no, the consequences of my actions. He tries to curse Harry, but he's a bad shot and he misses him. You know who is a good shot though? Mad Eye, or should we say Eagle Eye? And after that Quizzitch section, Eagle Owl Eye, Moody, all right, hits Malfoy with a long distance transfiguration from across the Great Hall, it seems, turns him into a little ferret, and then proceeds to beat the frick out of him.
he bounces him repeatedly.
Yeah, the note here, I don't think so, roared Moody, pointing his wand at the ferret again. It flew 10 feet into the air, fell with a smack to the floor, and then bounced upward once more. That's
And
pretty
he's
far.
taunting him the entire way. He's calling him a coward, scum. Like, man, there's some venom here. Like,
Yeah, I just thought this definitely shouldn't be allowed. And you know what? You're right, Barry. No, it's not, because McGonagall shows up and she ruins the fun for everybody. My next note was, LOL, when Malfoy says, I'm going to tell my father, Moody says, oh yeah? Do it. You tell him. You tell him I messed with you. Tell him I'm watching. I just love that.
well, like compared to what Hagrid did with Buckbeak in the last book, where he gets the scratch. What do you think is worse? Getting a scratch from a hippogriff or having a teacher transfigure you, bounce you up and down while actually talking trash to you?
It's definitely the second. That's definitely the worst one.
Right?
The other one is just an accident.
Yeah.
It's from an animal, not a person who knows ethics.
Exactly. This was intentional.
This was incredibly
intentional and meant.
So good point. But then they march off to go see Professor Snape. Ron is on cloud 9 at dinner. I really love Jim Dale's acting of this part when he's just, leave me alone. I want to remember that moment for the rest of my life. And if we didn't need more of a reason to hop on the Moody hype train, Fred, George, and Lee Jordan show up, sit next to them, and they also hype up Moody. They talk about him like just what he is, this experienced war veteran.
He's been there, man.
He's really
stuff.
Yeah, he's seen things.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the chapter. Yay! So that's all we got for that one. Moving on now to our favorite lines. Dan, you got some favorite lines for this chapter?
I do. It does touch a little bit about what we talked about earlier with Harry and Trelawney, because of course I can't lay off of it. So it's a little bit longer, so bear with me.
Do it.
But Trelawney gets into her lesson, right? She's actually going to teach something, not make weird predictions. She is actually going to teach. And she starts off with the movements of the planets and the mysterious portents they reveal only to those who understand the steps of the celestial dance. Cut to, but Harry's thoughts had drifted. The perfumed fire had made him sleepy and dull-witted. I mean, like, immediately, she starts actually teaching a lesson, and he's gone. He's like, you know what? Forget her actual teaching. I'm going to think about whatever I have to think about. He does have a pretty witty line, but with him being like, her lessons never held him exactly spellbound, which is a pretty quick-witted line. But I'm like, come on, Harry. She's actually trying to teach something, and you're immediately...
You got to give a little bit of a chance at the beginning of the year just to be like even if you didn't like her last year, you might think maybe something happened over the summer. So unfortunate as it is, being a silly student. One of my favorite lines, you're eating again, I noticed, said Ron, watching Hermione adding liberal amounts of jam to her toast too. I've decided there are better ways of making a stand about elf rights, said Hermione haughtily. Yeah, and you were hungry, said Ron, grinning. And I think it's in the next chapter, actually, my little note about their banter. But I love their banter in these books, and that's another good moment. But Did you have any more?
Nope.
Nope.
That was it for this chapter.
All right. I think I have a bunch of silly ones. So the next one was with the boobo tubers. Squeezing the boobo tubers was disgusting, but oddly satisfying. The note says, or the book
it's
says.
like those pimple popper videos that you can watch on like YouTube or whatever.
Yep.
Like you don't want to watch it, but then you're 30 minutes in somehow, and you're like, how have I been here for this long?
You know what was the worst was that happened to me on Instagram, like on the Explore page. And then for the next like month, and at this time I didn't know you could like reset preferences. For the next month, anytime I went to my Explore page, my algorithm was just like these body horror type pimples just showing up over and over and over. And I thought, what have I done? So I kept, anytime something remotely not pimple showed up on the Explore page, I thought, click, let's scroll through that a bunch. But yeah,
less satisfying if it smells like petrol, though. Right?
Some people love the smell of petrol.
That's true.
Some people
That's fair.
do. I'm not one of those people though. So weirdos. But anyway, my next favorite line. Nothing but deep affection for Hagrid could have made Harry, Ron, and Hermione pick up squelchy handfuls of frog liver and lower them into the crates to tempt the blast-ended Scroots. I just like that. I enjoyed the wording of that sentence. It's just, we really didn't want it, but our love for him and our hatred for Malfoy brings us to this point, makes us do crazy things. And then my last one for the chapter. My inner eye sees past your brave face to the troubled soul within, and I regret to say that your worries are not baseless. I see difficult times ahead for you. Alas, most difficult. I fear the thing you dread will soon come to pass, and perhaps sooner than you think. And I know she's, as you know, she's made fun of a lot, but just that wording, it's so, if you don't have the movie version of Trelawney in your head, if you have just the book version that you created, that could come across incredibly menacing.
Very ominous
statement. Yeah, I mean, the words are definitely that. But
and you have 3 years previously to prove that odds of her being right are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So what could be in store for me this year?
Trelawney, I think I would have been better if you didn't tell me. If you had never mentioned that to me, I'd have been better off.
Your life's going to be great.
Thank you. Moving on now to our transfigurations. And so these are differences that the movies made from the books. Now with this chapter, it's mostly omissions. So, we do not have the blasted Scroots. We don't go to Care of Magical Creatures. There is no Trelawney, no herbology. None of those classes are seen in the movie. In fact, I think the only class that they actually go to this movie is Defense Against the Dark Arts with Moody. I can't think I don't think there's any other time that they go to a class in this movie. So it's just Defense Against the Dark Arts. And that's in our next chapter. So we'll say more on that later. The Malfoy scene is also very different from book to movie. So in the movie, it's after Mad-Eye Moody's first lesson with them. And it's after the selection has taken place for the Triwizard Tournament. This one, in the book, it happens before. And in the movie, it's outside versus in the book being inside. In the movie, Malfoy insults Harry, not Ron's family. And Moody hits Malfoy before Malfoy ever casts a spell in the movie. Like Malfoy's about to do it. And then Moody just pops out and bam, gets him. And I will say, I don't know how you would feel about this. I always view most book lovers as hating what happens in the movies, but I thought this scene was better in the movie, and I really enjoyed the dialogue in this scene. It's even funnier to me, especially between Moody and McGonagall, because she goes up, "Is that a student? Technically, it's a ferret. What are you doing? Teaching." I love their banter. I think it's really funny.
You got to give some credit to the actors who pull
Absolutely.
off the scene, because I do think there is gold with Maggie Smith and how she reacts to it, and the ferret is fantastic. I mean, let's be real. Let's give credit to the real star of that scene, which is the ferret.
He would win the Oscar.
That's fantastic.
And also, when she it almost looks like she taps Moody on his freaking mouth whenever she says, "Surely Albus told you that," and he's like, "Might have mentioned it. You will do well to remember it."
Do you think, obviously Moody was an Auror, right? So he had to be a pretty solid wizard, right? Do you think McGonagall is sitting there like appalled by transfiguring a student, but is also as the transfiguration professor going, "It's nice work. It's really,
That's
it's
nice
really well
work.
done."
It's like, I mean, it's the equivalent of Hermione when she gets upset at Fred and George, but then says, but they are really good wizards. That is
Right.
really good magic.
I mean,
Hated that you did it. Great magic, though. And that is all of the transfigurations I have for this chapter. Like I said, mostly omissions, and the big change being that whole scene there. Moving on now to our golden snitches, which are a little behind the scenes, lores, tids and bits, stuff like that. And there's only one for this chapter. And there's actually, like, technically only one for next, too, but we'll get to there. But anyway, for this one, it's Blast-Ended Scroots. They are mentioned for the very first time. And listeners, I unfortunately cannot say too much about them because more restricted section stuff, they come up more in the future, more importantly. But the Blast-Ended Scroot was a magical hybrid beast bred by Rubeus Hagrid. I guess that's kind of spoiler, but not too big a one. They are a crossbreed of manticores and fire crabs. And that's
how is that a
pretty
good
sick.
idea?
That's
How is
pretty
that a good
sick.
idea?
Manticore. Oh, the fire crabs. My only knowledge of the fire crab is the ones in the Chamber of Secrets video game. If you've ever seen those little guys walking around in all the challenges.
Does this mean that Hagrid either bought these eggs on the black market again, like he did back in book 1 with Norbert? Or does he have somewhere these manticores like sitting around that he's breeding with other things?
Yeah, how did he get a manticore? That's a great
Right?
Is Hagrid able to soothe the giant manticore?
I would assume it's just this random thing that he bought on the magical black market, but
Play a bit of music and he goes straight to sleep, the manticore.
Yeah.
Oh, so just some behind the scenes about the manticore. The Scroots appeared to, or sorry about the Scroots. The Scroots appeared to be massive violation of the ban on experimental breeding. In the video game adaptation, Scroots are encountered as enemies several different times. I can't say too much there, but this one was interesting. In the Nintendo DS version of Lego Harry Potter years 1 through 4, the Scroots are seen trying to kill Buckbeak. I don't know at what point, but it's what it says on the wiki. So Scroots versus Buckbeak. I don't know who would win that. Grown Scroots.
yeah, grown ones are a problem. So
And a blast-ended Scroot appears in Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
it's true.
Promoted as a creature not seen in any, promoted even though it's a creature not seen in any of the films. Yeah, that is an interesting decision that I feel like most people that go to the Wizarding World in Universal only really know about the Scroots, or sorry, only really know about the movies. And so these creatures aren't in the movies. So it's interesting that this, I guess that just kind of makes it more fantastical. So even though they don't recognize it, they just see this super fiery beast that looks absolutely horrifying. But yeah, so I thought that was cool. Now, that's all I got for Golden Snitches. Dan, are you ready to go on to the next chapter, or do you need to take a break?
No, I'm ready to go on the next one.
Fantastic. Well then, let's hop into chapter 14, The Unforgivable Curses. So 2 days go by. Neville burns an undisclosed number of cauldrons, receiving an undisclosed punishment. All right, listeners, you got to figure that out yourself, right? Into theretoldpodcast@gmail.com. And the trio notices that old Snape has been a bit intimidated by old Mad-Eye. He's a little nervous around him, trying to avoid him. Thursday rolls around, and it's finally time to have a class with the Moodster himself. He walks in the room and says the magic words, "Put your books away. You know, you won't need those where we're going." Moody says, "Yeah, last year, y'all learned how to hunt animals. You know, you had a good time. Now it's time for hunting people." He tells them that he's going to teach them some super high-level stuff that the government doesn't want them to know. And he gives little Lavender a fright, just a quick little spook. Because, I think he catches that. That was almost a Quizzitch question. What was Lavender trying to show Parvati under the desk? Would you have been able to remember that?
Oh, the finished horoscope, whatever, homework for Trelawney.
I'm going to have to ask you like for comma placements on your next episode with me. That's how much you know this stuff. This is crazy. But time to learn about curses. Yay! Moody asks students which of the illegal spells that they know. And so there's 3 students who mention 3 different spells, with each one Moody performs that spell on one of the 3 spiders to show the class what it does. The first spell we learn is the Imperious Curse, brought to us by Ron. And it's because his dad, being a ministry wizard, was well acquainted with this. And so what this spell does is it puts somebody under your complete control. It's almost like mind control, or at least body control, and that they do what you want them to do. And Moody does say that with enough willpower, one is able to fight back against it. And then we get the whole explanation that when you-know-who fell out of power, the ministry had a time trying to figure out who was actually bad versus who was actually being controlled. Then our next spell, brought to us by, interestingly enough, Neville. And it is the Cruciatus Curse. And this is the torture curse that makes someone feel intense pain all throughout their body. And so what were my notes? My first note was Moody making the spider really big. So I like that whenever he pulls it out, he goes, not going to be good enough. They won't get the picture. So, and Gorgio.
Everybody must see this. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next note was Neville freaking out. And so it is just a huge foreshadowing thing, and really interesting that Neville is so affected by this in that moment.
Neville's had a rough time here, because even in the potions class that they kick off this chapter with, it says that Snape sent him into a nearly nervous collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, poor Neville. But
yeah, he doesn't have the best luck with teachers here.
I mean, that's brutal for a kid to go through. And now he's in this Defense Against the Dark Arts class, seeing a Cruciatus Curse, and then seemingly struggling to witness that. Man, Neville's been put through it just showing up to classes.
I wonder, so do you remember when you read this book for the first time?
I do. Yeah.
So my question to you then is, in this moment, when it got to this point, did you think, oh, that's Neville being Neville? Or did you think, what's going on with him?
The cauldron issue with Snape is where I thought, this is Neville being Neville. Mm-hmm. And he has kind of that like nervous anxiety kind of thing, especially that's brought out by Snape. But yeah, this made me feel like has to be something more to this, especially given the end of the chapter. Because it's not a mistake he's making. If anything, they point out that, oh wow, Neville like knows something. That's cool. That's awesome. He's confident enough to actually answer a question. And then so it's not a mistake that he's made. Yeah, he knows it, type of anxiety, and he's deeply affected by it. So there's got to be something going on there. I wonder what it is, listeners. We might talk about it later. We might talk about it later. The last one told to us by Hermione is the Killing Curse, Avada Kedavra. It shoots a flash of green light, blinding green light, and instantly kills its victim. There's no blocking it. There's no surviving it, unless you're a special boy. My note was Harry's thoughts. And so I thought it was interesting that, like, this is one of the cool parts about book to movie, in that in the book, like I grew up, I saw this movie first. And so before I ever read the book, that was my... You missed out on a lot then, because this movie cuts out a lot.
It does. But then when I read this book, it was just so fascinating that in that scene, what Harry thinks about is not like what many of the students probably thought about of, oh, how horrific. Harry just goes, oh, so that's what killed my parents. Like, that's how they went. Because this whole time, he's known that it was a flash of green light. He keeps having that nightmare every once in a while. He's had it all his life. But the flash of green light, blinding flash of green light, and he just starts thinking, so that's what did them in. And he kind of relives it again. And it's, I don't know, it's a much more of a powerful moment for Harry than almost anybody else in the room for that. So I thought that was interesting. And then, I do always love the line where Moody's just like, only one person's been known to survive it, and they're here. Yeah. Everybody knows who he's talking about.
Just put Harry under more of a spotlight. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. It'd be funny if one of the guys was like, who's he talking about?
Dean?
What does he mean?
Dean, you? Jameis?
You?
No.
after this class ends and the students file out, just all talking about the lesson, our trio goes to check on Neville, who looks rough. But before they can say too much to him, the most comforting presence appears. It's Mad-Eye Moody. I thought about doing a Mrs. Doubtfire impression for Mad-Eye Moody. Just then, hello, dear. I heard you like herbology.
I love how you bring him in with the comforting presence, because when they tell you about when Mad-Eye Moody walks in, they tell you that he has this clawed wooden foot, which I had never imagined in my head. Like, when this is one of those details that you read again, you're like, oh, that's right, he does have a clawed wooden foot. I just think of it as a straight up peg leg all the time, or like a weird wooden boot like they kind of have in the movie. But a clawed wooden foot is.
I wonder, is it like meant to look like a dragon foot or like some animal foot, or is it just like a big hook? You know, I don't.
Yeah, it's just a weird detail that they throw in there that I forget about every single time.
Dragon foot would be sick. But I'm glad you brought up like him walking into the class, and earlier too, because I enjoyed that moment where he smiles at Ron, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's actually." It does look kind of scary, but I'm glad to know that he can smile. And then here, even Harry notes that, like, as he's talking to Neville, his growl is actually slightly more gentle than it normally is. So when he's speaking to Neville, it's like, yeah, he's still not great, but having just heard him, this is him at least trying. So I do love the interaction with Harry where, he asks Harry, if he needs anything, and Harry's like defiantly, no, like, I'm all good. You don't have to worry about it. And then I love and again, it's such interesting stuff when you get into the restricted section things, but just the Mad-Eye saying, you need to know, like, this is really important for you. This is what Mad-Eye Moody would say. I feel like
this whole thing goes back to my whole spiel that I went on in book 3 with you, was the idea that these intro classes that every professor throws out there are insane. Like, you have Trelawney predicting students' deaths, which is bad. You have Snape sending kids into a nervous collapse. You have Lupin bringing kids their greatest fear. You have McGonagall bringing up animaguses and turning into a cat. And then you have Moody bringing out unforgivable curses and potentially traumatizing 2 kids in the class. Like,
at the
what
least
is going on?
Yeah.
And then, and that's not even including Hagrid with the hippogriff and the blast-ended screws. Like, it is bonkers at this school. Like, for example, could you imagine after their interaction in the last chapter with the ferret, can you imagine McGonagall just walking down the corridor at just the right time to hear Mad-Eye Moody in a classroom scream Avada Kedavra? She must be like, what is going on?
Dang, Peeves is going crazy
into the door, like,
that
craziness.
I never thought about, like, sitcom type moment of another teacher walking by. That can't be what or maybe it's some teacher who has like war experience, or maybe was in the Order of the Phoenix or something. They hear that PTSD triggers, they just drop to the floor. Like, what's going on?
Okay, clearly he didn't cast a spell. He's just saying what the spell is. Just big green light coming around the door. Like, oh no.
All the kids shout.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad. But anyway, next note is I wrote LOL Ron getting shut down by Harry, because, Ron is super excited about, man, that was really cool. Isn't that really cool? Him doing that killing curse, and Harry just not saying a word, and Ron being like, it's not that cool. Never mind. I don't know what I was saying. After dinner.
Read the room, Ron. Read the room.
Yeah, which is one thing he's not good at.
No.
After dinner, they find Neville in the common room, just reading away, little nerd that he is. Harry's like, hey, how you doing, buddy? But Neville actually seems all right. It does note that his eyes are a little red, but Sprout hyped him up to Moody, and that made him feel a whole lot better about the situation. Just somebody said I was good at something, good enough for me. And it speaks more to your point of the teachers at this school, their level of how much they should be there if all it takes for Neville is just to have one positive experience with a teacher. You know what? I guess maybe we could throw. I'm trying to think of all of Sprout's like first lessons. Seems pretty chill. I mean, the
She was
Mandrake, I
probably
guess,
one of the
it's
better
a baby
ones.
Mandrake though. Like adult Mandrakes would kill, but it's a
Right.
baby Mandrake. So
Sprout's pretty good, and Flitwick is pretty good about keeping him pretty on point with a
Yeah.
reasonable, actual, solid lesson.
Yeah,
usually.
I was going to throw in Madam Hooch, but then my thought was maybe on their first day she shouldn't actually have them taking off. Maybe she should
Yeah.
have them in the classroom like driver's ed talking about everything. Before we get out there, these are the things you need to know.
In theory, here's how a broom works. Yeah.
Exactly. So but they check in on Neville. He's all good though, because like I said, Madame Pomfrey hyped him up. Harry and Ron get to work on their divination work. And after a few minutes though, Ron says, forget it. Let's make stuff up. So they have a fun little time coming up with awful futures for themselves. I love the little Crookshanks moment, the line where it says Crookshanks hopped up in the chair and stared at them. I forget the exact word, but basically disappointed like Hermione would be, knowing that they were not doing their homework properly. Harry does spy Fred and George at work in the corner of the common room, being a bit shifty. All right. We don't know what they're up to, something going on with them. But then they see Harry look and they're like, you know what, let's get out of here. So they leave. They don't want to be spied on. And I love the dialogue between Hermione and Ron whenever Hermione enters the room here. Because it's just, I don't know, it was a lot of fun to me. So, hello, she said. I've just finished. So have I, said Ron triumphantly, throwing down his quill. Hermione sat down, skipping ahead. Not going to have a very good month, are you? She said sardonically as Crookshanks curled up in her lap, because she's looking at their predictions. Ah, well, at least I'm forewarned, Ron yawned. You seem to be... Oh, shoot. She does say drowning twice.
Woo!
Oh, retroactively, I got to go fix that. Oh, congratulations. Man, wait. So I asked an incorrect question because all four of those things happened. All four of those happened.
I thought she said drowning. I was pretty
Yeah.
sure she did.
I'll come up with a fourth question by the end of the podcast, and I'll ask you one. Don't you worry. You gotta have a same thing happen. Same thing. Guys, Dan is not to be trifled with. So she says, you seem to be drowning twice. Oh, am I? Said Ron, peering down at his predictions. I'd better be changing one of them to getting trampled by a rampaging hippogriff. Okay, so that's why I thought it was the hippogriff, because I read the twice and then the hippogriff. But that's why I was really right, Dan. But anyway, and the exchange continues. Hermione tries to get them to join her nonprofit for elves. Oh, because that's what she's been up to all this time, running off to the library, doing work. Because they keep saying, "Why are you going to the library so early? There's not even any homework." She said, "I'm not doing homework." So I wrote down terrible name because again, the name of the organization is the Society for the Protection of Elvish Welfare. And
This is a great Quizzitch question against me because I can never remember this name.
If I were to ask you right now, yeah, and it's as smart as Hermione is, I would have thought Ron keeps teasing her about the name being Spew.
Yeah.
And she goes, no, it's SPEW. She's got this just doesn't seem right for her to make this the name and then stick with it. I just thought that such a silly name. I tried to say the acronym for the name she was trying to choose, but it's impossible to say.
sense.
Yeah, it's like her.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I tried the same thing.
Anyway, she's just in the moment of telling them, hey, you're going to join my nonprofit, right? You're going to be part of this. You're the treasurer and you're the secretary. And then right as she's like trying to get them to join a little more, Hedwig comes in with the save. And she's got a letter from Sirius. Not the most comforting letter, though. That was my next note, because essentially Sirius is telling Harry, like, hey, man, you need to watch out. That scar hurting, not a good rumor. Been hearing lots of bad rumors. Dumbledore's reading the signs, even though nobody else is. I was like, this is the most conspiracy theory letter I've ever
Some
heard.
Liam Neeson vibes with the serious voice.
It really is.
It's like,
That's kind of how he's coming across. And
a little
so,
bit, yeah.
so Harry's mad at himself though for putting Sirius in danger by getting him to come back. It says he punches himself in the forehead. My next note. Poor Hedwig, because Harry doesn't give her any food. He's all flustered, but he really should have been more concerned about his owl. And
Treat that owl better. especially when they have like that whole thing where all these owls are coming in and they're all generally the same owl. And then here's this gorgeous white owl like flying in that's clearly unique.
I don't stick out and have to try to avoid predators all the time, you know.
Yeah.
She just made a probably what I can only assume was a harrowing mission to get to Sirius and back wherever he had been in the southern hemisphere. So poor Hedwig. She does get her get back though, because as she flies out, she knocks Harry on the head with her wing. Harry calls it a night at this point, you know, and he's all upset and heads up to his room. And that's the end of the chapter. Yay! So moving on now to our favorite lines.
2 questions for you before we get to favorite lines.
Of course, of course.
1, and this is both about the unforgivable curses. 1, do you think Moody displaying these curses in a classroom setting is informing the students, or is it glorifying the curses in a way? And I only say that because we get that description of all the students pouring out of his classroom in odd, quote unquote, voices about the spells. Like, oh, did you see that spider and how it was twitching? Did you see that spider and how it like just died immediately? And I'm like, I wonder if his lesson is having the impact or the effect that he would like or that he intends.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like on Sundays when I go to church and I walk out, I will hear some people say one thing about the sermon and somebody say a completely opposite thing.
Yeah.
You know, of like, can you believe he like the pastor talked so much about this, or it was so cool that he actually mentioned, and some people leave comforted, some people leave angry, you know, the whole spectrum. And so there's a vast difference of like, there's a long way to travel between message intended and message received, depending on who is the receiver of the message. So I absolutely agree that some of them walked out in awe and like you said, having viewed them as glorified, much like a teenage boy whenever he plays a war game, you know, thinking, oh, how cool. And
very similar.
Yeah. But we also see some of the students deeply affected. Now it's those who have PTSD from connections with the spells, but it is, I guess Hermione, at least, who doesn't seem to have any connection with those spells, she is deeply bothered by it. And so I do think it's a whole range in that area.
We had this discussion on my podcast. So I'll pose the question to you as well. Do you have a unforgivable curse that you think is the worst of the 3? They say Avada Kedavra is the worst of the 3. Moody says it in his lesson. Do you agree, or do you think one of the others is actually worse?
I think I do think it's a little bit contextual in that, you know, Avada Kedavra kind of ends it. Now, when you get into the other ones, there is, you know, you get into Dumbledore's line of fate's worse than death and things
exactly
like a violation of your autonomy with the Imperious Curse, and how far that goes while under the influence. So I think, you know, in a vacuum, one-time use for a small, I think the Imperious has the most range as far as actually, well, that's not even true, because the Cruciatus Curse and what it does to somebody we know. Yeah, so I guess
it's a tougher question than you think.
Yeah, I don't think there is a right answer. I think it's more so how the spells are used. And so if I'm only being hit with it for like a minute, it's definitely not the Avada Kedavra that I think I would take that out. But the other 2, yeah, can definitely. Yeah, I don't think there is a right answer. And
yeah, I mean, that's why they're unforgivable. All 3 of them are atrocious and horrible. And I think when on my podcast, we talked a lot about the Imperious Curse and taking away that free will and then what you're able to do with that. And Moody, I love how he set it up with the kids laughing at the dancing spider. And then he's like, oh, that's funny. That's funny. Would you like it if I did that to you? And then it just immediately quiets the entire classroom.
Yes. That's such a cool scene.
I did like how he immediately quieted. So if we're going to favorite lines, that's one of my favorite lines from the chapter is when he immediately quiets the entire classroom just with a sentence. It's great.
Yeah, I guess then that's a little more to the point of like your first question of he was trying to warn them and show them the seriousness of it because it does kind of weigh in on everybody there at the end. So that's one of yours. Let me find one of my favorite lines. Then I had quite a few for this chapter as well, but a lot of them are close together too, in this one. My first one, Moody's magical eye spun around to stare at Ron. Ron looked extremely apprehensive, but after a moment, Moody smiled. The first time Harry had seen him do so. The effect was to make his heavily scarred face look more twisted and contorted than ever, but it was nevertheless good to know that he ever did anything as friendly as smile. I loved that sounded cool. It was a very cool wording for that. I like that one a lot. What's another one you have?
So the other one is a more general version of what we just talked about with Moody kind of emphasizing the seriousness of what he's showing them. This is a little bit more general, but it's at the beginning where he starts with, a wizard who's about to put an illegal curse on you isn't going to tell you what he's about to do. He's not going to do it nice and polite to your face. You need to be prepared. You need to be alert and watchful. And then he follows with a somewhat humorous line of, you need to put that away, Miss Brown, when I'm talking. He has another great line where he's like, yeah, Avada Kedavra is a cool spell and all, but if all of you at once pulled out your wands and said the spell, I wouldn't get so much as a nosebleed. Yeah, like there has to be a power behind it, he says. So it's interesting. Everything he says in that classroom setting is really fascinating.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to note that, like, you know, I'm wondering, how does one build up their magic? How does one accumulate? Because it just seems, it seems like everybody had a baseline level of magic almost in the early books, but what did you know? It was dependent on your knowledge of spells. But then as you continue on, now it's, there's levels of magic. Some people are able to use more magic than others. How is that possible? It's interesting, the laws of this universe.
I think Dumbledore, without getting too spoilery, Dumbledore taps into that a couple of times, speaking about not how like good at a spell you are, but all the other intangible things that almost no one actually seems to consider that affects magic.
Absolutely.
What you're thinking, intent, emotion, all of that goes into how powerful you are, not just, I could say the words and move the wand really well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's a character later, and so I'm not going to say the name, but it's my favorite, like top 5 favorite lines in the whole series, just because of how cool it sounds. But this character says, like, you have to mean it. Righteous fury won't hurt me for long. So it's something like that, but like, it's such a cool line. Talking about the unforgivable curses.
Yep. So another lesson Harry gets later on.
Yeah. Then I have favorite line here. And on Wednesday, I think I'll come off worse in a fight. I was going to have a fight. Okay, I'll lose a bet. Yeah, you'll be betting I'll win my fight. That's just silly. I enjoyed that. Did you have any more?
No, their whole back and forth about creating fake futures for themselves was a fantastic little bit. So yeah, I liked it a lot.
And so my last two, one was I won't say it, but it's Hedwig looking offended. I loved that moment. I just thought it was funny. And then the very end of the chapter, kind of referenced it earlier, but the dormitory was completely silent. And had he been less preoccupied, Harry would have realized the absence of Neville's usual snores meant that he was not the only one lying awake. I find that so very interesting in that it's a shout out to a non-Harry character right at the end of a chapter.
A very pointed one.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because even like going into spoiler territory, I feel like it's not that big of a plot point. It's just a fascinating side thing that almost has like, I guess there's some things that have bearing on the story, but it is just an interesting little thing to bring significance to.
It just lets you know, and a lot of this chapter lets you know that Neville has more to do with this story going forward. Not just Goblet of Fire. Like, he has more he has more plot in Harry Potter's story than you might think.
Yeah. All right. Now, moving on, listeners, to our Transfigurations, differences that the movies made from the books. First one, in the book, Moody uses 3 spiders, but in the movie, he uses just 1 animal. However, it's not a spider.
That poor like whatever creature that is.
So it is an arachnid, but it's not a spider. It is a creature called, and I'm going to try to say it right, an ambipiggy. I think that's how you say it. But they're found all over the world. They are technically native to Britain as well, but several parts of the world. And so it is a horrifying looking spider. Like it doesn't, I mean, it's not a spider, but I'm gonna call it one. But it's a very scary arachnid. So I also wrote down in the movie, he's more silly with the Imperious Curse, with having it jump on students' faces or dance on them. I do like, though, that even in the movie, he brings it back down, right? When he goes, what should I have her do next? And he's laughing, and then he goes, drown herself, and it's just, and then the music changes. Yeah. Also wrote down that in the book, he says, he's in front of me, like the person who has survived the killing curse. There's only one in the whole world that's ever survived it, and he's sitting right in front of me. That's what he says in the book. But in the movie, he says, and he's sitting in this room. Not that big of a change, but I like the line delivery in the movie. He also asks Hermione in the movie versus in the book, she volunteers the information about Avada Kedavra, because in the movie, when he walks up to her, he says, perhaps you could tell us the final curse. And she shakes her head. She won't even tell him. But in the book, she does say what the spell is. And then I'm trying to remember, you brought up one earlier with the lavender moment in the book. He calls out lavender, but in the movie, he calls out Seamus Finnegan for putting gum on the underside of his desk. And so that's most of them for that section, that scene. But I also wrote down there is no SPEW, none of that whole subplot. That's all gone. And no little Hedwig subplot trying to contact Sirius. So those are more so omissions than transfigurations. But that's all I have for this chapter. Couldn't think of anything else. Moving on now to our golden snitches. And the only one I have for this, it's a 3-parter though. We kind of said it. It's the unforgivable curses. So the unforgivable curses were 3 of the most powerful, sinister spells known to the wizarding world, as well as the strongest known dark art spells in existence. They were tools of the dark arts and were first classified as unforgivable in 1717, with the strictest penalties attached to their use. The 3 infamous curses consisted of the Killing Curse, Avada Kedavra, Cruciatus Curse, Crucio, and the Imperious Curse, Imperio. By the 1990s, using any of these 3 curses on a fellow human being, muggle or wizard, would result in a lifetime sentence in Azkaban. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. What I thought was interesting was some of the etymology behind these curses. So, during an audience interview at the Edinburgh Book Festival in 2004, J.K. Rowling said, "Does anyone know where Avada Kedavra came from? It is an ancient spell in Aramaic and is the original abracadabra, which means let the thing be destroyed. Originally, it was used to cure illnesses, and the thing was the illness. So like abracadabra, let the illness be destroyed. So it's supposed to heal people. But I decided to make it the thing, as in the person standing in front of me. I take a lot of liberties with things like that. I twist them around and make them mine. So in her version, it says also influenced by the Latin word cadaver, meaning a body. And so Avada Kedavra, killing a body, or destroying a body, sorry. And then crucio means I torture in Latin, originating from the word crux, which means torture platform or stake, or more specifically, the cross. And so, in like Christianity, Jesus on the cross, the word cross, that's where we get our word excruciating, because of how painful of a death that was said to be. And then the last one, Imperio, is a corruption of impero, the Latin word for I command. So like an imperative sentence or something like that. So let's go ahead and move on.
There's a lot to talk about in the spoilers. So.
A lot to talk about in spoilers. But before we get to spoilers, two things we got to do. One, I would like to find a backup question for you now.
Okay.
Because I mean, you got it. I asked a bad question, all right? But I guess you technically got it right, but they all would have been right. So, all right, hold on. So this is the final one. What day was their Defense Against the Dark Arts class?
Thursday.
Thursday's correct. Good job,
Yeah.
Dan. All right, we'll correct that in post. Future Barry will hop back in. I was actually wrong. And then not only that, but you got every Quizzitch question throughout the episode right, where I was just like, I was going to ask this. So you're a wizard. You're a wizard, Dan. Moving on now to, I don't know why I said that like Yoda, but before we kick out everybody else, wanted to say, Dan, thank you for being on. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, we're available everywhere you can hear a podcast. So we're also available on our social medias at Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. You can find all of our socials at Hogwarts a Pod. And on Spotify specifically, we have polls that we launch, and we really love reading all of the results and comments about the polls and comments about the episode. So leave a comment, leave a review. That always helps. And participate in those polls, because we love seeing what everybody thinks. It's not just me. It's not just my guess. It's not just Barry. It's literally getting everybody in this wizarding world to comment on it is cool to see. So.
Absolutely. And listeners, I hope you check out Dan's podcast. I've listened to a lot of Harry Potter podcasts. It's one of my favorites. It's a very good show. Him and his friends, they get together and they make a great product for people to enjoy and listen to. So check that out, Hogwarts a Podcast. So now moving on to our spoiler section. You know, Dan, every single season I come up with a second nickname for it. You know, the first book it was The Third Floor Corridor, second book Chamber of Secrets, third book The Prison of Azkaban. This one I've had a resounding feedback that it is the worst nickname I've come up with. I didn't have much for this book, but The Graveyard is what I've also called it.
I would have said Goblet of Gab.
The Goblet of Gab. I like there's a podcast name if anybody wants that. You're free. Wise, I didn't come up with it. You got to ask Dan actually. But this is our
that immediately.
This is our restricted section. All spoiler talk. I'm going to rattle off a few of mine, and then whatever you have left on your mind, I'm sure I'll cover stuff here, but whatever you have left, we'll talk about your stuff too. So the first one, I also like to highlight foreshadows in this section as well. So the first one, Norbert is mentioned, and it almost seems kind of just randomly, for no apparent reason, but Norbert's mentioned in this chapter, and it's just kind of cool because later in the book, Norbert, or should we say Norberta, appears again. And then the divination classroom making Harry sleepy. You know, it's noted that how hot it was, the aromas, her voice made him like get close to almost fall asleep in this chapter. And it's foreshadow in that later in the book, he does actually fall asleep in class. Then I also have Arthur Moody and the dustbin incident. So that is, you just kind of read about it. We know that Moody's this crazy old guy. Arthur goes and helps him out because that's mentioned in a previous chapter. But that's all you think it is here. However, it's actually the incident where Wormtail and Barty Crouch Jr. broke in and they set off all the dustbins, bagged and gagged the real Moody, and got up out of there. So Arthur was actually helping Barty Crouch Jr. in that moment. Then Trelawney's and the boys' predictions. So Trelawney's right whenever she tells tells Harry, like, that thing you're dreading, it's going to happen. You know, you awful things in your future. What? Even when she says he's going to die.
Trelawney's right? No. Stop.
And then the boys' prediction is actually, I find that one a little more interesting this time around than Trelawney's, because at this point I'm like,
it is. Yeah.
Trelawney's got it in the bag now. It's not impressive for her to get it right. That's what she does. But with Harry, none of Ron's predictions come true, I noticed, though, because he mentions getting trampled by a hippogriff. That doesn't happen to him. Being drowned. I guess he does get drowned the one time, kind of like with the second task. But with all of Harry's predictions. So, he says he'll get burned. That's a shot. And listeners, I saw this theory, and it's like somebody said that it is a foreshadowing of each of the challenges in the Triwizard Tournament. So he's going to be burned. That's a reference to the dragon in the first task. He will have something valuable taken from him, a reference to the second task. And he will be betrayed by a friend. That is a reference to the third task, with Moody being the person he views as a friend. And then come off worse in a fight, and that being Voldemort in the graveyard. What was interesting, so I saw multiple versions of this theory, and the first time I saw it, like, I clicked on the little link on Google, takes me to a Reddit post, and somebody was so excited, and it was in like 2012 or something, that they posted this theory. And then underneath, I'm new to Reddit. People can be mean out on Reddit.
Yeah. Why we're not there?
Yeah, one of the comments underneath it was old theory, come up with something new. And I was like, geez, maybe this person just heard it for the first time. You didn't need to do that. Like, that's crazy.
Unnecessary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But shout out to Harry. He might be a seer. So that's fascinating. And then
interesting you would say that, because we're going through Cursed Child currently on the podcast, and he does have a very divination moment in Cursed Child too. And we're all like, wait. Okay.
Maybe he's got it, like he's the chosen one after all.
Yeah, true.
I will say though, in hindsight of the whole series, the most fascinating prediction is Trelawney saying that Harry was born, predicting that guessing, I guess, that he was born in midwinter, because he replies, no, I was born in July. However, we know that Harry is a Horcrux. He has a bit of Voldemort living inside of him. And I believe Voldemort was born on December 31st at the very end of the year. And so that is technically midwinter. And so it's possible that that's what what Trelawney was sensing in that moment. So I found that incredibly fascinating. Like, I didn't think about that, obviously.
Even when she's wrong, she's right.
Even when she's wrong, she's right. Good for her. So that's very cool. And then I wrote down, so when Moody's talking about the unforgivable curses, he mentions that Dumbledore has a higher opinion of you guys. He says that the Ministry doesn't want me to teach you this. Shouldn't be till 6th year, but Dumbledore has a higher opinion of you. And I thought, I'm betting it's because it's specifically for Harry's sake, thinking that things might start to ramp up soon, because we had Sirius say Dumbledore's reading the signs, even if nobody else is. And so here at this point, it might be Dumbledore thinking things might be about to pop off. Maybe instead of waiting till year 6 when Harry would have learned it anyway, we might need to start a little earlier and get Harry to learn some of these unforgivable curses now, because it does come into play later that he has to fight off the Imperious Curse in the graveyard with Voldemort. And then I did see a cool little, not a theory, but something on Reddit mentioning that Harry is the only person to fight off all 3 of the unforgivable curses with Imperio, Crucio, and Avada Kedavra.
Yeah, so much for it being unblockable.
Yeah. I heard somebody mention that Ginny actually blocked the killing curse in, I think, book 7. There's some moment during the war at Hogwarts, or the Battle of Hogwarts, that it makes it sound like she is hit. Like, I think Bellatrix sends a flash of green at her and she blocks it. And it's like, hold on. Was that what I thought it was? I'll check that out later, but I just saw a video on it that I thought was rather fascinating. But anyway, the last 2 that I have, one, the Fred and George side plot continues in this, because at the Burrow, it said they had their heads together working on something, and Molly tried to, figure out what it was. They joked it off, but now they seem a little more serious over in the corner working on something. And all that we hear them say is, no, that'll sound like we're accusing him. And I do find it fascinating that it's George who says that line. One of my favorite Harry Potter podcast episodes I've ever heard was, there was a MuggleCast episode where they talk about the differences between Fred and George. And it is fascinating when you actually go through the book, but they highlight how much more fiery and aggressive Fred is, and how much more calm and caring George is. And so if you watch that throughout the books, of course there's overlap, but for the most part, the one who says the meaner things And the funnier things is usually Fred, but the one who says the more sensitive and thoughtful things is George. But moving on, my last one, Hermione does help house elves when she becomes Minister for Magic. She talks about, so this is the beginning of Spew, and then later when she becomes one, I forget exactly what it is she does, but I know in this book, this chapter, she was talking about getting them representation. I assume she probably did that.
She does get them representation, yeah.
Very good. So now they can have taxation. Yay.
What they've always wanted.
That's right. All right, Dan, that's all I have. What about you?
So you covered a lot of the great stuff. I will just chip in again, just to reiterate that Moody / Barty Crouch Jr. lesson really did a lot of emotional damage there. I mean, he tortured Ron by just using the spider things. So that was the torture to Ron, who you know you don't tend to think about in this, but Neville obviously big time, obviously using the Cruciatus Curse in front of him, and that's obviously with his parents and that tragic history. And
I wonder if he like got pleasure out of that one. You know,
that's a whole other side question.
Yeah, isn't it?
There's a whole other deep dive that you can do, but he does. There is the detail that when he does the Cruciatus Curse in front of Neville, and when he talks about Harry being the one who survived, he puts both of his eyes on that individual. Like that's the first time that he really focuses his full attention on an individual in the class. So he's very aware of it. As we know, Barty Crouch Jr. is Mad-Eye Moody here. And he participated in the torture of the Longbottoms, which is a very awkward way to transition into one of my bigger hot takes, I guess, which is I actually love Barty Crouch Jr. as a character.
As a character, you could tell
as a character. Yeah. He is fascinating to me, and we went on and on and on my podcast about the just impressiveness of Barty Crouch Jr. Because if you think about it, Barty Crouch Jr. one had to be talented enough to even be included in that very select group of Death Eaters. It's not a very open environment. Two, I think it's somewhere Barty Crouch Sr. mentions that he had 12 OWLs at one point. So he's a brilliant individual. And then to subdue Mad-Eye Moody,
when your partner is Wormtail, so
even more impressive.
Even more impressive than by yourself.
Yes. Yes. So he subdues a legendary Auror, not easy to do. Then he deceives literally everyone at Hogwarts, which includes Dumbledore and Snape, who knows both Barty Crouch Jr. and Mad-Eye Moody very, very well,
and Occlumency,
which both Dumbledore and Snape are very, very adept in. So to be able to fool them that way, to put on this act, because I think at one point in this episode you said, wow, this sounds so moody. Like if there was a moody vibe, this is it. So he embodies that perfectly.
So well.
And it's just so impressive. And then, you know, maybe his most impressive feat is this job that he's doing for Voldemort is also including the necessity that he has to sit there and grade about 1.5 billion terrible papers and terrible assignments from all these students. You know, that's got to be irritating to him.
When I signed up for this job, Voldemort, this was not in the description.
Do you realize what these idiots are putting in their papers?
Like,
especially for like a guy so smart.
You do anything for me?
Unbelievable. But it's just Barty Crouch Jr. is a really fascinating character to deep dive.
Yeah,
even though he's only in here for one book, it's crazy to deep dive him.
Yeah, I 100% agree. He is. It's just so he does such a good job that I think, like, it's so good that it takes away from the character in our minds, because everything we get from him, because it embodies Moody so well, we just take that and put it on Moody. And like, this is what Mad-Eye Moody is like, is who Barty Crouch Jr. is throughout most of this school year. And so, like, I know when I think of Mad-Eye Moody, that's like much of my impression and the vibe of Moody it comes from this book, even though it's not moody. And so I think it's like you did your job too good. That's why a lot of people forget about you.
Well,
and it is wild to me.
Interactions.
What's that?
The interactions that he has in this 2 chapters with, like, he has drama with everybody. Like, he has drama with Draco because his father escaped Azkaban, unlike Barty Crouch Jr. Barty Crouch Jr. had to escape Azkaban. Lucius is out there living a great life. Snape is out there living a great life as a former Death Eater. He probably doesn't like that too much. Dumbledore probably helped hunt him down. And then you have Neville, who's obviously the son of the Oars that he tortured into insanity. And then you have Harry, who vanquished his master. Like,
yeah,
unbelievable.
My wonder has always been about, and I go back and forth on it, but with, did he, later when we get to the incident of him in the trial, when you look at the pensieve and him begging his father not to punish him, I didn't mean it, father, I didn't know, all that stuff. I always wonder, like, is he telling the truth there? You know, because the 2 takes that I've heard on Barty Crouch Jr. are, A, he's either trying to deceive his dad in that moment and he actually did want to be a part of the Death Eaters, or B, he's a kid who got caught up with the wrong people. He was told he was something, went to prison for it, and then, you know, it's like that adage of you're told that you're something enough, you become it. I'm more of the camp of A, that he was just lying to his dad and trying to get out of prison.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does go against his whole anger about Death Eaters who go free, and that the reason they go free is that they were disloyal to Voldemort. Because it's like, you were lying. Like, you were basically denying Voldemort. But interesting conversations waiting for later in the book. Did you have anything else you want to mention, though?
Nope. I just had my spiel about Barty Crouch Jr. That was what I was waiting on.
Absolutely. One of my most favorite characters. He's really fascinating. And, this is the other thing I was going to say about him. It's crazy that the movies just forget him. He's just gone. Because at the end of this book, you know, he gets his soul sucked out. But in the movies, it's just, he goes back to Azkaban. And it's like, well, I would think when movie 5 rolls around and there's the Escape from Azkaban, if I'm just a movie watcher, I'd be like, oh, I guess, you know, Barty Crouch Jr. is going to come back.
It's
but
also, just as a movie fan, it's a tragedy that David Tennant is only in the movie for like 5 minutes. Like, such a great actor, and he's barely in it.
People make fun of the little tongue flick. I like it. I think it's cool. I think
it just adds to Barty Crouch Jr. being a little nuts. He's a little crazy. Yeah.
And then, with the moment where his dad walks up, like, oh, is that him? But anyway, that's all I got. Dan, thank you so much for being on this week's episode. It was a pleasure to have you join us. Pleasure to have you here. And congrats again on getting every single Quizzitch question one could possibly throw at you. You're amazing, but hope to have you back again sometime. And listeners, thank you for listening, and I will see y'all next week. Goodbye, everybody. Click. Thank you for listening to Retold. Artwork for this podcast was created by Rachel Ortlip. Music was created by Taylor Jarvis. And the Retold podcast is produced by me. That's right, I made this.